about your presence pulses beneath the surface, unsettling the air, whispering, "Notice this." But here's the paradox. You're not trying. In fact, the less you strive, the more magnetic you become. Why is it that some people radiate a gravitational pull without uttering a single word, while others scream for attention and remain invisible? Why does energy, not effort, determine who is remembered and who is ignored? We've been told since childhood to speak up, stand tall, dress well, hustle harder. Yet the most captivating figures, those who seem almost divine in their appeal, defy those rules. They operate from a different reality, an inner current invisible to the naked eye but undeniable to the human psyche. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." But most people live from the surface, trapped in mimicry, hollow performance, and constant validation seeking. They ask, "What should I say to be liked?" instead of, "What energy do I inhabit that makes speech unnecessary?" This is the tragedy. You might already possess the magnetism you crave, but it's buried beneath layers of inherited fear, unconscious trauma, and societal noise. You were taught to chase visibility, not inhabit presence. And in doing so, you lost something vital, the raw, sacred power of your inner energetic state. So the real question is not how to be noticed, but how to become undeniable. The answer? Energetic shifts. 5 to be precise. Not tips, not tricks. These are tectonic changes in how your psyche aligns with reality. Drawn from the deepest layers of Jungian psychology, archetypal myth and existential truth. Each one dismantles a lie you've been living, and each one draws people to you with a force beyond charisma. It's not about what you do, it's about who you've unbecome. Let's begin. Number 1. From approval seeking to archetypal integrity. You were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be whole. The first energetic shift begins with killing your addiction to being liked. Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear to gain acceptance. But every time you please, adapt, or shrink yourself to make others comfortable, you betray your inner self. People feel this betrayal in your energy before you speak a word. It's the subtle smell of need, and nothing repels like neediness. Archetypal integrity means aligning your energy with the deep, mythic structure inside you, the warrior, the sage, the magician, the lover. When you embody these timeless forces instead of begging for approval, people recognize you not with their minds but their souls. Number 2. From self-consciousness to sacred embodiment. You think everyone is watching you. They're not. They're watching themselves, reflected in you. Self-consciousness is a distortion. It fragments your energy. You become like broken glass, visible but never penetrating. Sacred embodiment means inhabiting your body with reverence, as if your breath, your posture, your silence are ancient rituals. When you're fully in your body, shoulders relaxed, voice grounded, gaze still, you become a mirror. Others see their truth in you, and they can't look away. Number 3. From talking to resonating. Words are cheap, frequency isn't. We've been taught to speak to impress, but the truly magnetic don't talk, they transmit. Their words carry weight not because they are clever, but because they emerge from a deep congruence between inner truth and outer expression. Before you say anything, ask, is my energy congruent with this message? When it is, your voice will carry the resonance of authenticity, and that resonance is irresistible. Number 4. From scarcity to silent sovereignty. The world taught you to compete, to prove, to perform. But real magnetism comes from lack of need. Silent sovereignty is the energy of someone who knows they belong wherever they are, not because they were given permission, but because they carry their own center of gravity. It's the quiet confidence of a person who does not chase, because they have become the thing others chase. They do not fight for attention, because their attention is the gift. Number 5. From reaction to mythic stillness. Reaction is a symptom of unconsciousness. Stillness is the sign of inner mastery. To be still, not lazy, not indifferent, but profoundly awake, is to tap into a mythic frequency. It signals to the room, I am not controlled by you. I am rooted in something deeper. This is not a performance. This is not aloofness. It's the calm of someone who has walked into the underworld of their own psyche and returned whole. All 5 of these shifts are not things you do. They are transformations in being. But what stops you from inhabiting this state is deeper than habits or mindset. It is a hidden, inherited psychological wound. One so universal, it's become invisible, and it's time to expose it. You weren't born fragmented. You became that way, somewhere between childhood wonder and adult survival. You learned that parts of you were unacceptable, not through explicit command, but through subtle withdrawal. The look of disappointment on a parent's face when you spoke too boldly, the quiet reward of approval when you stayed silent and small. You learned to contort, to hide, to disown parts of your soul in exchange for conditional love. And in doing so, you split from your essence. Carl Jung called this the creation of the shadow, the repressed aspects of the psyche that we exile to preserve the persona, the social mask. It's not that you became fake. You became incomplete. But what does this have to do with your energy? Everything. You cannot emit a whole frequency from a divided self. The world senses this fracture. Even when you're polite, charming, or successful, there's something dissonant. People may respect you, but they won't feel you. Because you don't fully feel yourself. This is the hidden problem. Not a lack of confidence, not poor social skills, but internal division. To become energetically irresistible, you must reclaim what you've disowned. Not just your light, but your rage, your sensuality, your grief, your divine indifference. That wholeness is not just attractive, it is transcendent. But the psychological wound runs deeper than personal experience. It is a collective inheritance. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer described life as oscillating between pain and boredom. The pain of unfulfilled desire and the emptiness of its attainment. Most people live in this pendulum, unaware they are trapped in a cycle of chasing what cannot satisfy. Society reinforces this chase. It tells you to accumulate traits, to be more likable, productive, charismatic, as if you were a product to improve. But Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not better, but real. And this realness is rare because it is dangerous. It requires you to violate the scripts that society has carved into your flesh. It requires you to stop performing and start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. But the deeper tragedy is this. We fear our own depth. Jean-Paul Sartre called this the vertigo of freedom. That nauseating realization that you are not fixed, not defined, not limited, that you are responsible for choosing who you become every moment. So instead, we choose prisons. We cling to identities handed to us by parents, culture, trauma, because they are familiar, because they are safe. And so our energy grows stale, predictable, contained. You think people can't feel that? They can. Not with their logic, but with their limbic systems. With the old animal in their brain that detects danger, truth, and vitality without language. A person fully alive, fully whole, fully sovereign, disorients the system. They are magnetic because they refuse to be manipulated. And in a world built on control, that is the ultimate rebellion. But there's a darker reason why most people never reach this state. They are haunted by what Jung called the complex, emotionally charged clusters of unconscious beliefs, formed from early wounds. These complexes are like inner saboteurs, distorting your behavior and leaking static into your energy field. You can dress well, speak eloquently, even meditate daily, but if your core energy is still run by a wounded inner child begging for love, the world feels that. So we come to the deeper truth. Attraction is not about traits. It is about trauma integration. The most radiant people are not the most perfect. They are the most integrated. They have descended into their inner chaos and made peace with their monsters. They no longer hide because there is nothing left to defend. And this peace, this rare, sacred peace, is what the human nervous system longs to be near. Not excitement, not status, safety. Not the safety of protection, but the safety of truth. Because deep down, we all crave one thing: to be in the presence of someone who is not pretending. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." But most of us have locked our chaos away, sedated it, buried it under layers of performance. And so the star never dances, the energy never flows. Here is the great betrayal of modern life. It convinces you to edit your soul for market value. And here is the greater truth. Your unedited soul is the most valuable force in the world. So ask yourself, when did you learn that certain parts of you had to die for you to be loved? When did you begin performing instead of being? What myths about worth, beauty, power, and presence have you swallowed without chewing? The answers to these questions lie buried in the shadow. And only by going into that darkness, not avoiding it, can you reclaim the lost energy that makes you irresistible. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about unearthing who you were before you were told you were wrong. But be warned, this path will cost you your illusions. It will strip away the comfort of victimhood, the narcotic of social approval, the mask of invulnerability. You will lose your performance, but you will gain your power. And power, true, unshakable inner power, is the most compelling force on earth. Still, the consequences of not taking this path are far more profound than personal dissatisfaction. There is something darker at play, an unseen force quietly shaping the way we love, connect, and exist. You walk through life with a mask, sometimes elegant, sometimes cracked, but always it presses tightly against your skin. What you may not realize is that the world is not reacting to you. It's reacting to your mask. Your co-workers, lovers, friends, even strangers. They respond not to your essence, but to the fragments of you that are allowed to be seen. The tragedy is, most people live their entire lives like this, not because they choose to, but because they've forgotten there's another way. This forgetting has consequences. When you exile parts of yourself, those parts don't die. They go underground, and like anything buried too long, they begin to rot, fester, ferment. This is not metaphor, it's biological. Neuroscience confirms what mystics always knew. The repression of emotion leads to somatic suffering, chronic tension, panic attacks, digestive issues, autoimmune breakdowns. But more subtly and far more tragically, it creates energetic incoherence. You say you're fine, but your body screams fear. You project confidence, but your presence leaks anxiety. You smile, but your eyes whisper, "Don't get too close." This dissonance is felt, not just by you, but by everyone around you. And over time, it erodes connection, not just with others, but with reality itself. Cognitive dissonance becomes chronic. You live in contradiction, and the psyche collapses under the weight of its own denial. You begin to distrust your intuition, because it often points toward things your mask won't allow you to confront. You chase relationships, but they feel hollow. You succeed at work, but you feel like an imposter. You laugh at parties, but part of you is screaming in silence. Is this it? This is the cost of living from the persona instead of the self. But it gets worse. There's a phenomenon in psychology known as limbic resonance. It's the process by which two nervous systems attune to one another. It happens between mother and infant, between lovers, between friends sitting in silence. It's how we regulate each other emotionally, without words, without logic. But here's the hidden danger. If your nervous system is dysregulated, if your energy is anxious, fragmented, repressed, then every interaction you have spreads that fragmentation. You become a transmitter of unprocessed trauma, and no matter how well you perform, people feel unsafe in your presence. They may not know why, but they will instinctively pull away, distrust you, dismiss you, not because you're flawed, but because your energy tells them this person is not home inside themselves. This is the unseen epidemic of modern life. We are collectively starving for coherence, for presence, truth, realness, but instead, we are fed images, filters, performances, digital personas, optimized for likes but hollowed of soul. The result? A cultural breakdown of intimacy. We don't trust each other, not because we are untrustworthy, but because we are energetically disembodied. We've outsourced our presence to performance, and we are terrified to admit that we don't remember who we are beneath the layers. Jean Baudrillard once spoke of the hyper-real, a reality more real than real, constructed entirely of symbols and signs with no grounding in the actual. That is what we have become, symbolic versions of ourselves, endlessly curating rather than being. And yet the body knows, the psyche remembers. Every time you hold back a truth, your stomach tightens. Every time you pretend to agree, your jaw clenches. Every time you scroll past your own boredom, your nervous system absorbs the tension of 1,000 shallow distractions. These tiny betrayals accumulate, and the cost is enormous. Your energetic field becomes noisy, muddled, unclear. People sense this, even if they can't articulate it. They pull away, not out of cruelty but confusion. This is why some people seem to repel others despite being kind or competent. Their energy is incoherent. It doesn't sing, it shivers. And this is why others, who may not be conventionally attractive or socially gifted, draw others like gravity. They are whole. Their trauma is integrated. Their soul is embodied. Their energy hums a clear note. And the world, weary of dissonance, leans in to listen. But this clarity does not come from affirmation or technique. It comes from confrontation. You must confront the lies you've been living, the roles you inherited, the masks you mistook for your face. And here's where Carl Jung's insights become essential. He taught that the goal of life is not happiness, but individuation. the process of becoming your most whole, authentic self. But individuation requires you to face your shadow, the parts you've disowned, denied, or discarded. Most people run from their shadow. They project it onto others. They blame, ghost, cancel, anything to avoid the dark mirror. But those who turn inward, who enter the underworld of the psyche with courage, emerge transformed, integrated, radiant. They no longer repel the world through inner contradiction. They resonate with it. This resonance is not about being perfect. It's about being real. And reality is magnetic. Now zoom out. What happens to a society full of people who never integrate, who live in performance, dissonance, distraction? The answer is this: disconnection becomes the norm. Relationships become transactional. Leadership becomes theatrical. Love becomes a negotiation of masks. This is not an exaggeration. It is a civilizational sickness, and it's spreading. Inauthenticity becomes contagious, not because we want it to be, but because we are wired for mimicry. Mirror neurons ensure that we absorb the energy of those around us. If everyone is fragmented, that fragmentation becomes baseline reality. But the opposite is also true. One person, fully present, energetically coherent, rooted in truth, can recalibrate a room. They don't need to speak. Their stillness is a sermon. Their gaze is a grounding force. Their presence reminds others of themselves. That is what it means to be energetically irresistible. Not flashy, not performative, alive. So now the question is urgent. What would it take to stop the performance? To silence the noise? To return to the truth of who you are? Unmasked, unafraid, unforgettable. What if you stopped chasing attraction and became the kind of presence that could not be ignored? In the next section, we'll explore how to do exactly that. Not through effort, but through energetic rebellion. A return to yourself so radical, it dismantles every illusion you've lived under. It's not easy, but it is possible, and it changes everything. There comes a moment in your life, usually subtle, rarely loud, where you feel it. The tension, the fracture, the unbearable weight of pretending. You sit in a meeting and your throat tightens, not from what's being said, but from what's being swallowed. You laugh with friends, and yet a sliver of you watches from behind your smile, wondering who you're performing for. You look in the mirror and see not a person, but a collection of adaptations, a mosaic of masks. And then it hits you. I have been shaped more by fear than by truth. This is the breaking point. The rebellion doesn't begin with a scream. It begins with a stillness so sharp it cuts through your illusions. This is your invitation, not to change who you are, but to undo who you're not. Because the most magnetic people in the world are not performing. They are remembering. They are reclaiming. They are living in defiance of every script that told them their truth was too much. You can too, but to do so, you must understand something radical. The world around you is not built for your liberation. It is built for your compliance. From early childhood, systems are engineered to reward obedience, conformity, repetition. Schools teach you to answer, not to question. Social media teaches you to pose, not to feel. Even family systems, often unconsciously condition you to suppress your authenticity in exchange for love, safety, or approval. This is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. So if you want to reclaim your presence, your magnetism, your soul, you must rebel. And this rebellion is not loud or violent. It is existential. It is philosophical. It is deeply, profoundly personal. Here are 5 counterintuitive ways to begin. 1. Stop improving yourself. Yes, you heard that right. Self-improvement, as marketed today, is often a disguised form of self-rejection. It says, "You are not enough. Fix yourself. Upgrade, optimize." But this only deepens the fragmentation. What if you stopped trying to become better and started becoming real? Carl Jung said, "I'd rather be whole than good." Wholeness is not about polishing your personality. It's about integrating your soul. Begin by asking, what part of me have I been trying to erase under the mask of growth? Reclaim it, not to indulge it, but to understand it. Every disowned part holds a piece of your power. 2. Speak the unspoken. There's something you're not saying, something you haven't said in years, maybe ever, a truth you've buried, a desire you've censored, a no that never left your lips. Here's the truth. Every time you silence your soul, your energy splinters. Every word you don't say leaves a residue in your nervous system, and people feel it, even when they don't know why. Start small. Say one thing today that scares you. Tell someone the truth, even if your voice trembles. This isn't about being rude. It's about being real. Realness creates resonance. Resonance builds attraction. 3. Romanticize aloneness. Most people fear being alone, not because they dislike solitude, but because they've never met themselves in silence. You run from quiet moments. You fill your days with noise, your nights with scrolling, your mornings with productivity. Why? Because silence is where the truth speaks, and you've been trained to ignore it. But here's the rebellion. Fall in love with your own presence. Take yourself into nature. Sit with your breath. Journal not for productivity, but for catharsis. Dance alone. Cry without shame. Walk without destination. The more at home you are in your own body, the more your energy begins to harmonize. And that harmony is magnetic. 4. Fail on purpose. You've built your life on performing success, on getting it right, on protecting your image. But what if you failed? Deliberately. What if you allowed yourself to be seen making a mistake? Missing the mark, being imperfect? This is not self-sabotage. This is sacred dismantling. When you no longer fear failure, your energy relaxes, and a relaxed nervous system radiates presence. Start by letting go of one identity that no longer serves you. Let yourself be average at something you used to excel at. Let yourself be raw. Let yourself be seen. Because once you stop trying to impress, people start to feel you. 5. Choose myth over marketing. You are not a brand. You are a mythic being. Marketing has infiltrated selfhood. We now think of ourselves in terms of audience, performance, likes, reach. We curate our existence for validation, but the soul doesn't respond to branding. It responds to archetype. Reconnect with your myth. Ask yourself, if I were a figure in an ancient story, what role would I play? What trials would I face? What power would I awaken? Maybe you're the wounded healer, the sacred rebel, the lost prince, the firebringer. Let your life become a story, not a strategy. People are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to depth. They are drawn to the myth inside you that reminds them of their own. These are not hacks. These are initiations. They will feel unnatural at first, because your nervous system is wired for safety, not truth. It takes time to unwind the conditioning, to trust your own frequency, to stop abandoning yourself for acceptance. But once you do, once your energy becomes an honest, unapologetic transmission of your essence, everything changes. You'll notice people respond differently, not because you've become someone else, but because you've come home to yourself, and home is magnetic. Still, there is one final shift, one ultimate realization that surpasses even energetic alignment, a truth so deep, it pierces the illusion of self entirely. It's not just a way of being, it's a revelation, a cosmic remembering that rewrites what it means to be seen, to be loved, to exist. That's where we go next. You've stripped away the layers. You've questioned the persona, confronted the shadow, and touched the raw flame of your own essence. You've stopped performing. You've started remembering. But there is one final door, and on the other side of it is a truth so destabilizing, so liberating, it dissolves every identity you've ever clung to. Are you ready? Here it is. You were never the mask, but you were never the wearer either. What you truly are is not someone becoming. You are the space in which all becoming happens. Not the character, but the consciousness. Not the story, but the screen on which the story unfolds. All this time, you believed magnetism came from alignment, fixing, improving, integrating. And that is partly true. But the deepest form of presence comes not from effort or even healing, but from transcendence. The paradox is this. The more you identify with the self, the more energy you leak trying to protect, maintain, or enhance it. The more you dissolve the self, the more your energy flows. Carl Jung hinted at this, though subtly. He wrote of the self not as your ego identity, but as the totality of your being, the conscious, the unconscious, the animal, the divine. But what if there's more? What if the ultimate freedom isn't becoming your best self, but waking up from the illusion of self altogether? Let's look at it clearly. The mind says, be confident. The soul says, be whole. But consciousness, it whispers, be nothing. Because the moment you become no one, you become everyone. This is not spiritual escapism. It's the deepest reality. Mystics, sages, quantum physicists, they've all pointed to this. Beneath the stories, beneath the conditioning, beneath the identity you call me, there is only one thing, awareness. Pure, silent, unmoved awareness. It doesn't judge. It doesn't perform. It doesn't attract or repel. It simply is. And yet, paradoxically, this awareness is the most magnetic force in the universe. Because when someone speaks from that place, when they live from that stillness, when they move not from ego but from presence, you feel it. You feel God behind their eyes. You see it in a Zen monk whose silence speaks louder than sermons, in a dying grandmother who radiates peace, in a child dancing, unconcerned with being seen, in the artist who loses themselves in the act of creation, until only the act remains. These people don't try to be attractive. They aren't even trying to be. They've surrendered the illusion of separation, and in that surrender, they've become a channel for something beyond personality, beyond charisma, beyond words, pure presence. That's what you're drawn to. That's what you long to become. But how? The path to know self. First, understand. This isn't a state you achieve. It's a remembering of what you already are when you stop trying. Here's the irony. All your effort to be enough is what keeps you separate from the truth that you already are. So stop, just stop, sit, breathe, watch, notice the thoughts, the sensations, the impulses. Then notice this. You are not the thoughts, not the sensations, not even the personality reacting to them. You are the witness, and from this witnessing, a great silence arises. It's not empty. It's not numb. It's full. vibrant with life, love, power. But not yours. Not in the egoic sense. This is not your power. It is power moving through you. When you live from this space, you stop needing to impress or perform. People are drawn to you not because you're trying, but because you are free. And freedom is the ultimate aphrodisiac. The death of image, the birth of essence. Do you know why most people never reach this state? Because it requires a death, the death of self-image. The death of needing to be seen as good, wise, beautiful, worthy. It's terrifying, like leaping from a cliff into the void. But what you discover is this. The void is not empty. It is you. Not the you your parents raised. Not the you society shaped. But the original you. The unconditioned you. The unnameable you. And from this place, energy flows without friction. Your gaze softens. Your voice deepens. Your presence expands. You become not a person in a room, but the room itself. Not a face in the crowd, but the pulse running beneath it. You don't chase, you call, not by intention, by being. The final shift. From becoming to being. All this time you've been trying to become irresistible. But becoming implies lack. It implies a future state. A distance from what already is. What if you stopped trying to get there and realized you're already it? The part of you watching these words. The silent, still awareness reading between the lines. That's the real you. It cannot be enhanced. It cannot be diminished. And when you drop into that space fully, when you surrender identity, past, future, narrative, you become the kind of presence that breaks time itself. You still a room. You anchor others without a word. You transmit something ancient, sacred, and undeniable. Not because you're special, but because you've remembered. You are not the mask. You are not even the face beneath it. You are the light that shines through both. And that light, it is irresistible. Now take a breath. Not the shallow breath of performance, but the deep cellular breath of presence. You've journeyed through the myth, through the mirror, through the fire of your own forgetting. And here you are, not improved, not fixed, revealed. So go, not to chase, not to impress, not even to teach. Go as the walking permission slip, the living myth, the embodied question. Let the world feel what it forgot it needed. A human being who is finally, fiercely, unapologetically real.